I'm Feven and I'm a member of the FNAN mentoring team. As some of you are aware, FNAN is a charity organisation that aims to support Eritreans living in the UK. And I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about different ways that you can help support your child to become a better learner at home. So I hope that you find the video useful and that you're able to take something away from it. Right, so let's go straight into it. I'll just share my screen with you. There we go. As I said, this video is going to be talking about 8 top tips that I've put together, which hopefully will be useful in engaging your child more effectively in their learning at home. So we'll start off with a little bit of background information. A little bit about me. I graduated with a degree in psychology before working in a primary school. I've been working in the primary school for the last 13 years now, and I started off working at the school as a one-to-one learning support assistant for a child with autism. And then I went back to university to do a postgraduate degree to become a class teacher. I then moved on to my current role, which is leader of learning for years 5 and 6, and I'm also the maths lead across the school. So you might find that some of my examples are maths related. I'm going to try and balance it out by giving you examples for other subjects as well. From my background in psychology and working in a primary school, I've had a little bit of an insight into learning behaviours, which is what I used to come up with my 8 top tips today. So why are we talking about this topic now? Some parents have reported struggling to get their children to do all the work set, especially during this COVID-19 times where schools have been closed for quite a long time now. So it's just to help those parents who have been facing those issues. And recently, The Guardian newspaper also reported that 1 in 5 children have done little to no schoolwork. So if you've been having some difficulties with your children engaging fully with the work, then hopefully this video will be able to help you tackle some of those issues. So this video should be useful for all parents, hopefully, but especially the parents of children who are primary school age, so between 4 to 11. If you haven't been facing difficulties engaging your children in their learning, that's absolutely brilliant. And I hope that this video will be a little bit of a reassurance that you have been doing the right thing. So the very first top tip I'd like to share with you is the need for routine and structure. Now, most of us are aware of this, and there are lots of different ways of doing this. I'll share with you some examples in a moment. The reason why it needs to be the day needs to be structured is to help the child have an understanding of what to expect during the day. So that sense of predictability and knowing what's going to come next, or knowing what they're going to be doing during the day in what order, helps the child feel more confident, but also reduces any anxiety that they might be feeling about the work or about the day in general. It also gives children a sense of responsibility, so they're able to kind of keep track of what they're doing and what they need to do during the day. Now, it's really important that when you have a visual timetable, that you include breaks and relaxation time, or something that the child is really looking forward to, so that they know exactly when it's coming up. It also, again, stops questions like, when are we going to have a break, or when can I go and play football, or things like that, because they know exactly when that's coming up, and it actually acts as a motivator to help them to complete the work, because they know that soon they're going to have a break. So different ways of creating a visual timetable. You can give children ownership depending on their age, but they can actually participate in designing the timetable with you. So they can design it, they can decorate it. It doesn't really matter what it looks like, as long as it serves the purpose of showing the child exactly what they're going to be doing or what they're expected to do during the day. So you know your child best. For some children, it might be a good idea to get them to decide the order that they're going to do the schoolwork set, so the order of subjects to be covered. Also, for the older children, you might get them to help you to calculate the start and the finish time, and talking about how long it might take them to do an activity. So that involves a little bit of maths, getting them to calculate time and so on. Ideally, all of this work should be done in the right environment, so away from the TV, iPads, and other distractions. And these are some examples of what visual timetables could look like. Now, you might want to include time or you might not. Again, you know your child best. You might just want them to work at their own pace as long as they complete all the activities set. You might want to use an example template like this. So this one just has morning activities and afternoon activities, so there's no time there. And what the child could do to keep track of what they've done, or just to keep them going and motivate them to keep going, they could just use the bottle lids. If you provide them with some bottle lids, as soon as they've done an activity that you've written there in the morning activity, for example, they could just place a water bottle lid, and they do that for every activity that they've completed. That way, the child can see very clearly, because it's really visual and hands-on, that they've completed a certain number of activities, and they can see how many more activities they've got to complete for the day. This is the example that I shared in the previous slide. So this one has times and then exactly what the child needs to do throughout the day as well. You can find some visuals like these examples: breakfast, brush your teeth, complete your English work, and so on, in twinkle.co.uk, and you can sign up for free if you want to have a look at some of those resources. But I think it might be a really good idea for your child to draw these or to write them down themselves, because they would, as I said before, take ownership in designing the timetable and really buying into the idea of having a timetable. Here's also another example. With this one, you might notice that it's a whole week rather than a daily one. So again, if your child wants to use a weekly one where they can see, for example, when they might do a little bit of artwork, if it's on a Wednesday afternoon, they can see it clearly. Even on a Monday morning, they can see that on a Wednesday afternoon, they will be doing some art. They might use this to organize some resources. So they might get their paint brushes ready, their paint and so on, and make sure they have all the resources that they need in time for Wednesday afternoon. So it depends on what your child would respond to best. But as I said, because it's not one size fits all, what I'll be doing throughout the top tips is giving you different ideas so that you can trial the ones that work best for your child. You can link this with rewards as well. I'll be talking a little bit more about rewards later on during this video, but each time they complete certain number of activities, they might earn certain number of points, and then those points could then equate to doing something fun that they enjoy. So maybe playing football with you in the garden or something like that, but we'll talk a bit more about that later. So that takes us to tip number 2, which is something about the fun theory, or making activities really fun. So most of us know that the more fun something is, the more engaged we'll be with it for longer. I thought I'll start off by sharing with you a short clip that kind of, it's a little experiment. I'll just get you to watch it and I'll talk through it as we do. So there we go. As you can see, this is at a train station. Most people are using the escalators instead of the stairs, and the idea was to get more people to use the stairs. And what they decided to do is to make it more fun to actually use the stairs compared to the escalators. So they've transformed the stairs completely, or the steps, to piano stairs. And by making it fun, lots of people then decided to choose to take the stairs, whereas before they would have taken the escalators. Having fun along the way up as well. And so it just proves or goes to show that the more fun something is, the more likely we're to engage with it. But I just thought this was a really nice video clip to watch. I mean, you can watch it with your children as well. It's quite interesting, and it does have a sound that plays along as well, but I cannot for some reason share it on this video with the sound on. Okay, so we'll go back to the slide. So that's one way of showing that fun theory works. So we need to try and make sure that learning is fun for our children, and that sometimes they don't even have to realize that they're learning, because they're so engaged in that activity and having so much fun that the learning just happens automatically. With the fun theory, I just wanted to also mention that it's really important for children to sort of ensure that all their senses, or as many senses as possible, are engaged. So with that, I'll show you another clip in a second, but it sort of engages their visual. There is a visual. There is also sound for them. Sometimes also, which we'll discuss in a minute, it's really hands-on, so they use their hands and so on. So if we can try and think about the children using different senses, then they're likely to engage with it for longer as well. So I'll share another website that you could use. So with this website, it's called voki.com, and again, you can sign up for free if you want, and you can choose different animations depending on what your child is interested in. And the really lovely thing is that you can record a message, or you could type a message for the voice to sort of say, and set your child a task. It's just setting them exactly the same what you would have done with pen and paper, but doing it in a more fun and engaging way to get them excited. So I'll share this example with you. So with that, you can see that the problem is presented to the children as them being the experts and you needing their help, for example, or the chef needing their help. And this just goes to show also that they can learn a bit of maths by measuring and converting units of measurement in the kitchen whilst they're cooking or baking, but also they could even write a recipe. So that is a little bit of link to English writing skills. They could think about maybe spelling some of the ingredients while you write the recipe, for example. You can even get them to sort of record instructions for how to make it. So it doesn't have to be done in writing. With the recording, they still would be encouraged to sort of use imperative verbs and think about their vocabulary and so on. So it's just a different way of learning again. There's also another an app that I'd like to share with you, which is FX Guru, and that's something that you can download on your phone if you'd like to. And what it does is that it helps you to create realistic special effects, and that can be used for inspiring writing, for example. So you just need to use your phone to record in your room or outside in the garden or somewhere else that is familiar to the children, and you can create different effects to sort of excite the children to produce some writing or something like that. Another way of making learning fun is just having questions, for example, maths questions. If you just rip up the questions so that each question is on a separate piece of paper, you can then hide it in the garden or hide it in their room, and all they have to do is go round and look for the questions and answer the questions. Now that might seem like a very simple thing to do, but it's something that will get the children moving. So again, they're using their different senses, they're looking for things, it becomes a bit more exciting. Maybe when they get to the last question, it might lead them to a little treat. It's up to you how you want to organize it, but it gets children quite engaged in treasure hunting and solving the questions and so on. I'll share with you an example of a board game template on the next slide. But board games are a really fun way of engaging children again as well. So for example, again, you could rip up all the questions that you want them to answer, and then every time they roll a dice and they land on a bug or a character, for example, they've got to answer a question. If they don't land on a character, then they don't have to answer a question, but you'll be really surprised how many times they get to land on different characters. I'll show you that board game, as I said, on the next slide. Again, using, for example, dice or playing cards that you can get from the £1 shop to generate numbers. So, for example, if their activity is to multiply numbers or to multiply 2-digit numbers, then they could just use cards or dice to generate those numbers themselves. And again, just using anything around the house, any objects that you have to bring learning to life and make it really hands-on would be really helpful in making it fun. So this is the example board game template that I talked about. As you can see, there are different characters from The Simpsons, and every time that they roll a dice, so for example, they start at the start bit here, and if they have rolled 2, then they go 1, 2, and they land on the mouse, so they've got to answer a question. But if they had landed on 3, then they don't have to answer a question, and it's the next person's turn to roll the dice. You can play this with them, and the beauty of doing that is that, one, it's collaborative, so they're playing against someone else, against you. You're showing them that you're really interested in their learning as well, and you would like to have a go. We'll talk about collaborative learning a bit later on during the video, but every time you land on a character, for example, you could get them to check your answers, so they have to solve it at the same time as you, so that they can check your answers as well. So that's one way of making sure that they're doing the work as well. Right, so that takes us on to top tip number 3. And this is one of my favorite concepts. It's all about growth mindset. Now, growth mindset is all about making sure that you have an understanding that mistakes are actually a really good thing. They help us to learn, so every mistake you can learn from, and that mistakes are proof that we're really trying, that we're not just going for the easy things or easy sorts of questions, and that we are coming out of our comfort zone and really trying something challenging. So whenever your child makes a mistake, it's great if you could celebrate that mistake and just say to them that it's a learning opportunity. You might also need to model making mistakes yourself, just so that your children can see that everyone makes mistakes and it's absolutely fine. I think the way in which you react to your mistakes is also really crucial. So not getting too upset, but actually thinking, okay, so I've made this mistake. How can my mistake help me to solve the problem? I realized that when I did it this way, I got it wrong. What else can I do to get it right? So how can I change this bit? Depending on what activity you're doing, if you model that thought process that you want your children to have when they make a mistake, that would be great. It would help them to have a growth mindset. And it's also the understanding that something is not fixed. So for example, it's not saying that I'm not good at maths, but actually saying I need to work a little bit harder on maths, or I need to spend a bit longer on maths. So knowing that something is not just fixed, you're not just born brilliant at maths, but you've got to work hard at it. It's really important also, as you probably know, when your children are doing their work, that you show patience. And sometimes that can be a little bit tricky, but really being patient with them encourages them to stick to problems for longer. We don't want children just having a go at something, and as soon as they find it difficult, or as soon as they realize that it's going to take a long time, that they give up. We want them to keep going. So modeling that patience and showing the understanding that it's okay for you to take long to solve a problem, as long as you're trying different things and learning from your mistakes, and not giving up, building resilience, which is what FNAN means, is great. And also something that a lot of parents might experience as well, because education has changed so much since we were last at school. There might be some things that the children have to do that you're not quite sure of yourself, that you don't know the answer to or the solution to. In that case, just be really honest with your children, and just show them that there are ways of solving the problem. So really thinking, what can we do to help us? Because we both don't know the answer, and maybe thinking about reading a book, referring to something, asking someone, thinking about using the resources around you, or maybe going onto Google and researching it together. So you're modeling the problem solving skills. When you're faced with a problem, what do you do to come out of it? And it's making sure that we don't say that, I can't do it, but instead maybe saying, I can't do it yet, because yet is really, really powerful. So I'll show you a little clip that demonstrates the growth mindset idea. I'll just show you part of the clip. You might want to watch the whole clip with your child, because it is supposed to be, it is aimed at children and to explain what the growth mindset really is. So I'll share this with you. As you can see, this person here is actually ahead of his peers. He's doing really, really well, but I'm sure you've guessed from his facial expression, he's not very happy. And the reason for that is because he finds the work really tricky, and he can see that he's about to make a mistake. And let's see what happens. So he's ahead of his peers. He gets to a problem that's quite tricky. He knows he's probably about to make a mistake. He just stays there. So he hasn't got a growth mindset. He's got a fixed mindset. He doesn't celebrate he doesn't celebrate mistakes and sees them as part of learning. So what's happened is his peers who were sort of behind him have actually now gone ahead because they were not scared to make the mistakes. They've made the mistake and they found themselves really helping themselves and going back up. So they have gone way ahead of him. So this person here has a growth mindset, and they keep on going in their learning journey. And sometimes they might make really, really big mistakes, but they know that there is a way out. They've got to help themselves to come out. And as you can see, they've gone a lot further than the person who is ahead of them, because they've got a growth mindset. I'll go back to our screen. And the power of yet, saying I don't understand yet, not just saying I don't understand and stopping there. The idea that you are going to understand if you try harder, or if you find different ways of solving the problem or approaching it differently, and really having that open mind and positivity towards making mistakes. At the bottom here, you can see some examples that children could sort of say to show that they've got a growth mindset, or to make sure that they've got a growth mindset. So instead of saying, for example, I'm not that good at this, they could say, what am I missing? So what am I missing? I'm finding this a little bit tricky at the moment. What information am I missing? How can I get it? Instead of giving up, so saying I give up, they could say, I'll use some of the strategies we've learned. So it's about, again, helping yourself, finding different strategies. And again, instead of saying this is too hard, someone with a growth mindset might say something like, this may take me some time and effort. So really recognizing that it's not just too hard, but it might take you some time and effort to get to the solution. So you can have a look at some more of the examples in your own time. I just wanted to also share with you a quote that I really love by Thomas Edison. He said, I haven't failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. So he definitely had a growth mindset. Right, so that takes us to top tip number 4. And this is all about building confidence and really helping your child to be a confident learner. So praising your child's efforts is really, really important. And I think for me, I realized this a while back, because I used to perhaps praise the achievement and really say, wow, that's brilliant, well done for doing that. But instead, it's better to praise the child's efforts. So it's better to maybe say, wow, I can see that you really spent a long time on that. You didn't give up. That's absolutely brilliant. I can see that you worked hard on this. So praising their efforts is more important than praising the final product or their achievements. And what that does is that it builds resilience. Again, FNAN, resilience. It helps them to really think that if you work harder at a problem, or if you spend longer with a problem, then it's absolutely okay. So it's not just about it's not just about the end product, but it's about the learning journey itself. Giving your child opportunity to become a mini teacher might be a really good idea. So you could say to them, okay, you're going to be my teacher today. Can you help me learn this? And what that does is that it helps the child to access their knowledge and then to translate it to someone else, for someone else to be able to understand it. And in doing so, that's really useful for the child, because when they're teaching others, as you can see in the pyramid, it helps their retention. They're likely to remember the knowledge that they're sharing with someone else because they're talking about it, they're discussing it, they're actually teaching someone else. And I remember this learning pyramid being shared by another member of the FNAN team, and I think it's really powerful. Sometimes also it might be a good idea to attempt questions where there's no right or wrong answer. And what that does is it really helps the child to just tackle problems, knowing that there is no right or wrong answer, there is no chance of making mistakes. So any idea that they come up with is a really good idea, as long as they sort of explain that idea and maybe prove and disprove it. So it really helps them to think a little bit broader. As I said at the beginning of the video, here I talk about praise and rewards. And it's really great for children to be told that they worked really hard on something. And for me personally, I think it's really important for a child to know that you're really proud of them. I think perhaps we don't say it enough to some of our children, but to say, I'm really, really proud of you, is really powerful and helps the child to feel more confident in themselves. Rewards in general also, I think we need to remember to make sure that it's not too materialistic, or too many materialistic sort of rewards, or too much time on electronics. Although it's great for them maybe to earn some minutes to spend on their iPad, we need to make sure that we're monitoring that, because a lot of our children probably already spend quite a long time on electronics. But instead, rewards could be time for them to maybe paint, depending on the activity that they're most look forward to or they're most comfortable with. It might be playing their favorite board game, or having some time to play football in the garden, or watch a movie together with you. So these are just some of the things that could help build confidence. So far we've talked about 4 different top tips. The very first one was about routine and the need for structure. The second one was about the fun theory and making learning fun so that the children can engage with it for longer. The third one was about growth mindset and really celebrating mistakes. The third one was about growth mindset and celebrating mistakes. And the fourth one now is about building confidence. So we'll move on to the 5th top tip. And that is all to do with promoting self-reflection. So it's really important for us not to shame our children and tell them off that they, maybe saying, oh, you really didn't do as much work as you did yesterday today. It might be more effective for us maybe to think about helping them to be reflective learners, to reflect upon how much they've achieved in the day themselves. So you might want to ask your child some questions. So you might say, what are you most proud of today? What did you do well? Or what did you enjoy doing? and maybe asking them why as well. As I said, in avoiding shaming, we could just encourage our children to think about what they found difficult and what they think they need to work on the next day, perhaps, and how it compares to yesterday. So in asking them the questions, you're getting them to do the thinking rather than telling them that they did a lot more work yesterday compared to today. They just need to reflect on that and say, oh, I think maybe yesterday I did a little bit more work, but it's coming from the children. So again, they're taking ownership. They're honestly reflecting on how much they've done. And I think that will hopefully motivate them to do better or to keep doing better. It's really important, though, that the self-reflection that we're promoting in our children is not in the form of an interview. So it shouldn't be formal. It shouldn't be every day the same questions. It should just be a chit-chat that you have with your child, and you might want to ask them maybe 1 or 2 questions every other day, so that they're still reflecting on how much they're doing at home. And in having those conversations, it will really also help you to understand your child as a learner. And once you understand what they enjoy and what they didn't enjoy and how they think they can improve, you can then tailor some of the strategies that you use to help engage your child and to help them to be a better learner as well. You might also want to model your own reflections. So it's really important for them to know that nobody's perfect, and we as adults sometimes set ourselves a few tasks to do, whether it's chores around the house or actual work, writing that we need to do or something like that. We just need to be able to model that thinking process again for the children, and really saying, oh, today I had planned to do this, this and that, but actually I only managed to do 2 things out of the 3 or 4 things I had planned. And I think that's probably because I did this and that, or I got a little bit distracted because my friend phoned me and I spent a bit longer than I wanted to, and so on. So in having those honest reflections and honest conversations with your children, you're encouraging them for themselves to be really honest when they reflect on their own learning as well. Right, so top tip number 6 then is all about collaborative activities or collaborative learning. And so learning doesn't have to be done just on a piece of paper. It can be done in so many different ways. So, and collaborative learning is one of them. It helps you to bond with your child and also develop teamwork and their understanding of how important it might be to work with someone else. It's not always that they will be working independently. Sometimes they need to work with other children or with other people. So encouraging them to make sure that they're sort of supporting other people and really learning from others and listening is really important. So some examples then of what this could look like. You could decide to have a little bit of a project or have a go at a project. So if your child is, for example, interested in football, you might get them to design a football pitch that they want to then create a 3D model of, like this example on the slide. They could design and create the 3D model. They can then paint it, and they can think about different rules perhaps that they want to include. They might want to change it into a game. So once they've designed the football pitch, they might think, okay, I can use it as a game. And in this picture, you can see that they've got a little straw, and what they do is they've got a little football, I think it might be made out of paper, and they just use the straw to score goals, to blow on the ball, and to hopefully then score a goal. So that example of a project could be used to help the child to learn in lots of different subjects, for example. So in them designing the model and thinking about the resources that they're going to be using and so on, that's a lovely link to design and technology, so DT. In them maybe thinking about the area of the pitch and how big it's going to be and measuring and so on, that's a really lovely link to maths as well. They can also maybe write instructions or rules for the game that they've created, and that again is a lovely link to English and writing. So there are lots of different things that you can do together. And I think the main thing is to use your child's interests as a motivator. So really think, what is it that my child enjoys doing, and how can I use that to help them to learn? Because as I said, learning doesn't just happen on a piece of paper or with a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen. It can be a bit more creative than that. So feel free to even ask them, depending on the child's age, what they would like to work on, and think about different links to different subjects or skills that you could help them to develop in doing that. Another thing also that's really important is reading together. So getting your child to read to you, and sometimes you reading to them, is really, really important. But also maybe just reading a book each, side by side. You could be reading your adult book while they read their children's book. It's just, again, modeling and showing them that, you know, we set time aside for reading, we value reading, and so on. It's really just getting them to love learning and showing them that you love learning too. Right, top tip number 7 then is all to do with movement breaks. And you might be wondering what this is and why this is important, but a normal attention span, or for how long someone can focus for or concentrate for, is usually about 3 to 5 minutes per year of a child's age. So someone who's 2 years old should be able to concentrate on a particular task for about 6 minutes or so. And you might have found yourself, even as adults, getting really distracted by things around us. We need to be aware of our own concentration and our own attention span as well. But as children, what could help them to sort of refresh that or really focus for longer is having movement breaks in between different tasks. So you could get your child to do a piece of work, but they don't have to sit the whole time to complete that work, especially if it takes quite a long time to do. You might want to divide it into chunks of, 20-minute chunks. And then after 20 minutes, they just get up and they might do a stretch. They might, do some star jumps. They might jog on the spot. You might play Simon Says with them. But that movement in itself will help the child to then have a little bit of a mini break and then get back to their learning. So that attention span should be sort of helping the child to concentrate for longer. I've shared with you a website, gonoodle.com. You can register there for free as well, and it should be giving you some ideas of some movements that your child might find interesting or engaging to take part in. I know that PE with Joe has also been really, really popular amongst children, especially during the lockdown. So starting the day with that could also be really useful for the children. And the final top tip, which is top tip number 8, is all to do with self-regulation. Now this links slightly to the last one that we talked about, movement breaks, but it's slightly for a different reason. And self-regulation is all to do with you being aware of your own energy and your own emotions and behavior and attention, and being able to manage them really effectively. So it's really important for us to be aware and to check that our child's energy levels match the kind of work that we want them to be doing. So are their energy levels really, really low? So are they, not ready to do an activity that requires a slightly higher energy level? Or is their energy level too high? Sometimes you might find that their energy level is way too high for them to concentrate on something that they might need to sort of sit down and concentrate for. But it's not about having the right or wrong energy level. It's just thinking about making sure that the energy level matches the activity that the child needs to be doing. Because, for example, if you want the child to take part in a PE lesson, for example, or take part in sports. You don't want the energy level to be too low or in the middle. You want the energy level to be high because you want them to be running around and taking part in the sport fully. But as I said, making sure that the energy level matches the activity that you want them to be doing is really important. Also, depending on your child's age, you might want to make them aware of that. So instead of saying, oh, I can see that you're too hyper, you're not concentrating, or you're too hyper to concentrate on this, maybe thinking about the kind of language that we're using with our children as well. You might want to say something like, oh, I can see your energy level is too high. What can we do to bring it down a little bit? Because for this activity, you really need to be your energy level needs to be somewhere in the middle. I can see that you've got a lot of energy to burn. Shall we maybe do some star jumps to burn some of that energy? Or shall we do some breathing exercises to calm us down a little bit? So it's having that conversation with your child, again, depending on the age of your child as well, and whether they're able to give you some ideas of what they think could work as well. It's really important that when we talk to our children about this, that when we talk to them about what they think would work for them, and that we were doing this at the right time. So if your child is, for example, feeling a bit agitated, feeling angry or bored or too excited or sad, then this might not be time for you to have that conversation with them. We need to be thinking about finding the best time to talk to children about what might work for them. So there is something about being in the learning brain and being in the survival brain. So for example, if a child doesn't feel safe, and this can be for many reasons, they could be really anxious about coronavirus, they could be anxious about the possibility of going back to school and not knowing what school is going to be like and how different things will be at school. They might not be feeling safe, or they might be feeling really upset about it. Then they won't be in the space to learn. They will probably be in their survival brain. They're thinking about survival and really thinking about how to keep safe. So that's not the best time for them to access learning. So if we find our child is not feeling safe, or if we find our child's energy level doesn't quite match the activity we want them to do, or we find that they're experiencing negative emotions, we need to be giving our children time to sort of self-regulate, and I'll be sharing some examples of things that they could do. And until they're regulated and they're ready for learning, we shouldn't push them to engage in learning, because if they're in their survival brain, they won't be in their learning brain. So it's all about calming down, making sure that they're self-regulated, really able to manage their emotions, and are then ready for learning. You might think about maybe giving the child some time out to calm down. And now this is not time out as in, you've been naughty, you need some time out. Rather, this is, okay, I can see your energy level doesn't quite match what we're supposed to be doing right now. So I'll just give you a bit of time out. And when you're ready, just let me know when you're ready to learn, or really talking to them about different things as well beforehand to see what works for your child, as I said. So here are some examples of things that children do to self-regulate, to make sure that they're feeling ready for learning when they might be angry or the energy level's not quite right. So one really lovely way of getting them to feel self-regulated is maybe giving themselves a hug. Or even pressing down on their arms, really thinking about engaging those senses and making them feel really comfortable. They might even engage in some breathing exercises, so really deep breathing through the nose, where you might say smell the flower, and blowing out through the mouth. Something you could say blow out the candle, and then they can visualize that as well, and so they can really focus on their breathing. They could also use some fiddle toys. So some children, when they're feeling anxious or unsafe or angry, they might want to fiddle and play around with a little toy. Now, as long as that's not distracting them from their learning when they're ready to learn, then that's okay even for them to be fiddling with that toy when they're doing their learning. Or they might decide to do it just to self-regulate, to calm themselves down, and then put it to one side when they go back to their learning. Right, so this is a summary of some of the top tips that we just talked about. I hope you have found it useful so far. So the very first top tip that we talked about is all about routine and structure. And then we talked about the fun theory and making learning fun, and growth mindset, all about embracing mistakes and really trying our best. And the fourth one was all about building confidence in your children. And the fifth top tip was promoting self-reflection and really helping them to think about how much they got done, what helped them, what didn't quite help them, how they can improve. And the sixth top tip is all about collaborative activities that you could be planning and learning together. And the seventh one is all about movement breaks, making sure that learning is broken up into, for example, 20-minute chunks and so on, and giving them some movement breaks where they can stand up and stretch and so on, whilst doing different activities, going back to learning. And the last one was all about self-regulation, making sure that they're not in the survival brain when they're learning, and that they are calm and the energy level matches the activity that they're supposed to be doing, and that they are in the learning brain and self-regulated as well. Right, so I'll share some useful websites with you. You might have come across some of them because their teachers have shared them, or you might have just come across them on the internet. The one that I will definitely recommend is the third one. That's the White Rose Maths, and at the moment they've just released free workbooks for children, so you might want to have a look at some of those if you're planning on maybe doing a little bit of learning during the summer holidays as well. And the other one that I would recommend you have a look at when you have a bit of time also is the School Run, and that is a really lovely website. It is targeted at parents, and so it talks about the national curriculum on different aspects of learning and so on. So feel free to have a look at some of those websites when you have the time as well. Now, I just want to end by saying to remember that you are doing a fantastic job because you have your child's best interests at heart. So don't worry if sometimes you find yourself, struggling or not understanding a question that their teachers have set for the children, or that you're not familiar with some of the content of some of the activities that they've been set by the school. Because the beauty of learning is that it can be done in so many different ways, and education has changed so much since we have been last at school. And even myself, if I wasn't a teacher, then I don't think I would be familiar with most of the things that the children are learning at the moment. So don't worry if you're not familiar with some of the activities that they've been set. I think the main thing is to make sure that you're motivating your children and really thinking about self-help skills. Okay, so if we don't know this, what can we do to help ourselves? What different ways could we what could we do to help ourselves? And really thinking about modeling those for your children. So using the dictionary, or asking somebody, or looking up something online and so on. And really helping them to have the right attitude to their learning. So having a growth mindset and so on. Ensuring that they complete work. So if your child's really, really struggling with their work, you might want to implement some of the top tips that we've just talked about, but you might also want to prioritize some subjects. So you might have some non-negotiables. Perhaps they need to complete the work set for the core subjects. So for English, maths and science, and maybe think about other times that they can complete the other subjects as well. And of course, above all, remembering that this can be a really stressful time and a difficult time for both children and adults as well, because of what's happening around us during these, difficult times of COVID-19. So make sure that you're looking after yourselves as parents and looking after your children's well-being, and try not to stress too much if the child doesn't engage as much at the beginning with their learning. You might just need to be creative in the ways that learning takes place at home. So have fun learning and enjoy the time together. I hope that you found this video useful, and I thank you very much for spending the time listening to some of the top tips. Thank you.